Time now for the most listened to talk show in Vegas. Talking with those on the right, the left, and everywhere in between. It's Pushing the Limits with Brian Shapiro.
I hate everything about this Brian Shapiro guy.
This show will make you laugh, make you cry, and it might raise Brian's blood pressure.
You know what, dude? People like you, all you do is make excuses for the orange turd, and I've had it.
Buckle up because it's Pushing the Limits with Brian Shapiro.
You're different. I like you.
Now, here's Brian.
All right, what's up, everybody? Thank you, Mr. Nick Bonsanto. It is Pushing the Limits. Thank you so much for tuning in. Could be on KSHP, could be on the FM AM dial, could be, of course, on the Occupy Democrats Network, the Washington Press Network, TikTok, Twitch, X, YouTube, you name it. We are here, and we appreciate you being a part of the show. Also, check out my website, which is fairly new, been around a few months, pushingthelimits.live. Again, that's pushingthelimits.live, where we have some merchandise up there, donate button. We are independently owned. We appreciate you supporting what we do. So coming up here at the bottom of the hour, in-studio guest, he's one of the biggest Democrat donors on the planet. He is a billionaire, a self-made billionaire. His name is Jay Bloom, but he is not supporting Kamala Harris. He's going to tell us why, and he's going to tell us who he's supporting, and that might surprise some of you. So he's going to be joining us in studio here coming up at the bottom of the hour. We will be taking calls, and you will be able to ask him and talk to him and ask him why he's not supporting Kamala Harris. So he'll be joining us again at the bottom of the hour. Listen, we're going to get into more audio of Mike Johnson, Tim Burchett. You know, I told you this was going to happen. Even Elizabeth Hasselbeck, the DEI hire. I'll get to that here in a few minutes. But I want to start off by talking to you about something that is very difficult to talk about. And it's something that a video that I watched yesterday. The shooting of an innocent black woman named Sonia Massey. So we all saw the George Floyd video. We all saw that. And we all witnessed what took place there. A murder took place, and that's why Derek Chauvin is behind bars. If you haven't seen this video yet, the reason why it became national news, at least yesterday, was because police released body camera footage. The Illinois sheriff's deputy and his partner go into Sonia Massey's apartment. She is a mother. She is a daughter. She is fairly young, in good health. Family members are saying maybe the mental health wasn't great, but that's irrelevant to this story. Because Sonia Massey is the innocent black woman who actually called 911 because she thought there was an intruder trying to get into her home. Police have a conversation with her, and there's video of all this. Police have a conversation with her outside the apartment. Everything seems to be calm. And for whatever reason, police wanted to go inside her apartment, which, by the way, they didn't have the right to do. And maybe Sonia didn't know that. And maybe she didn't know her rights to no fault of her own. So the police go in there. They're having a conversation. The police ask her for ID, which she did not have to provide. And then one of the police officers, and everything seems to be calm, by the way. They're joking around. Everything's calm. And then one of the officers says, hey, you got a pot that's boiling in the kitchen. So what does she do? She gets up. She takes the boiling water pot off of the stove. No threat to anybody. And she says to the officer, which at a minimum, at worst, maybe a little strange. She says, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. For no reason she says that. But again, this is a woman that's a little mentally disturbed. But, you know, you have the right to say that. It's not like she was swearing at the officer or anything. And for whatever reason, when she said that to the officer starts swearing at her, takes out his gun and says, I will effing shoot you in the head. For no reason, by the way. No de-escalation. It went from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds. In the last seconds of this woman's life, she says, I'm sorry. You clearly hear her say that when she really didn't do anything wrong. And she ducks and puts the pot over her head to protect her. The Illinois sheriff deputy pulls out his gun and shoots her in the head and kills her. And it is extremely difficult to watch. I was nauseous when I watched this video. Now, he's been charged with first-degree murder. But the story gets worse. First of all, this guy who murdered this woman in cold blood, he had 2 DUIs years back, and he's worked at 6 different departments. Again, another failure in regards to law enforcement, and how somebody like this could even be wearing a badge is beyond me. It gets worse. Hours later, when the family was notified that their loved one was killed, their mother, their daughter, what did law enforcement tell them? Law enforcement tells them that she committed suicide. Remind you of somebody else? Ahmaud Arbery, who was lynched. And then law enforcement told the family, yeah, he's the one who started it. He's the one who agitated. It was his fault. So law enforcement and this entire department are a bunch of lying snakes. You can see in the video after the shooting, this guy's partner doesn't say, oh my God, why did you do that? Oh my God, let's help this woman's life. No, he asked if the officer is okay who just committed murder. He also calls her a crazy bitch in the video. Lies and said she came at him with boiling water. A lie, not true. Everything's on video. And for idiots out there, and some who have done this show, like the moron Larry Elder, who says systemic racism doesn't exist. I ask this question, and again, as I do in the Ahmaud Arbery case, would this have happened if this woman was white? I say probably not. And they did almost nothing to try to save this woman's life. Nothing. They didn't even want to use a medical kit on her. And they tried to put it under the rug. Now, of course, once the video is released, we all see what happened. How many times have these types of shootings happened when we did not have body cameras? How many times in society have we seen police officers murder people in cold blood, but there was no video evidence to prove it? Because if there was no body camera, this officer would still be on the streets, because they would lie like they did in the police report and say she came at us with boiling water. And there would be no evidence that she didn't do it, so we would have to take the officer's word, and there would be no arrests. And that is also why I say body camera footage should be on 24/7. How many times has this happened in society where a police officer commits cold blood murder and they're not held to account? I would imagine it happened a lot before body camera footage. It still happens with body cameras on and engaged. This police officer committed cold-hearted murder. It is very difficult to watch. I feel for this woman, Sonia, who did absolutely nothing wrong. I feel for her family and friends. And listen, you could throw tens of millions of dollars at the family, and I'm sure that's what will happen at the taxpayer's expense, and it doesn't bring Sonia back. Even moments after this officer commits murder, he calls her a crazy bitch in the video, lies, and said that she came at him with hot boiling water and he had no choice. Again, a lie. The video speaks for itself. He will be convicted, just like Derek Chauvin. He will go to jail. In my personal opinion, give this police officer the death penalty. Now, I know that won't happen. Set an example. Put this guy to death, because that's what he deserves, in my opinion, and he deserves to burn in hell, because I believe he went in there because he wanted to kill somebody black. There is no doubt in my mind that he was angry when he went in the door, and he wanted to find a reason to shoot this poor innocent woman, and that's exactly what happened. And now she's dead. How the hell did these officers get on the streets with DUIs on their record? If you have one DUI, you should not be allowed to be a police officer. One felony on your record, you should not be allowed to be a police officer. But how do they get away with it? They go from precinct to precinct to precinct. They go from one police department to another. If they're fired for cause somewhere, they get a job somewhere else. That has to stop. It has to stop. This man should have never been a cop. He should have never been allowed to be on the streets. But he was. And I am not a fan of Benjamin Crump, or as I like to call him, Benjamin Crumbs, because that's what he does. Every single time an innocent black person is killed, he rushes to the rescue, not because he cares about black people, but because he wants to make money off of tragedy. So I'm not going to listen to anything that a-hole has to say, because I think he's despicable. If you really want to do something to help, let's talk about policing. Let's talk about law enforcement. This guy, Benjamin Crump, who's got more money than God, how much money has he donated to black communities? I want to hear more good cops call this sort of policing out. I'm not hearing enough of it. This guy should have never been a cop. And the gall. When police officers knew that one of their own murdered this woman, they lied to the family. You had a grieving father, and a grieving daughter who just lost their mother, just lost their daughter. What happened? How could this have happened? What happened? Well, your daughter tried to commit suicide. That was a lie. The gall of the police, who also should be reprimanded and fired for lying to the family. His partner, who seemed to back him instead of immediately telling the truth, should be fired. Should never be allowed to be a cop again, as far as I'm concerned. It's despicable, it's disgusting, and it needs to stop. And to me, this is worse than George Floyd. I'm glad that Derek Chauvin was convicted of murder. I'm glad that he's behind bars. I'm not certain, and I'm not defending Derek Chauvin in any way, but I am not certain that Chauvin was actually trying to kill George Floyd. Certainly it was his fault. But I'm not certain when he put the knee on the neck, he was actually trying to kill George Floyd. Maybe he was. I don't know. I am certain that this officer wanted to kill this innocent woman. If you don't believe me, you can just watch the video for yourself. It's despicable and it's disgusting. We're going to continue to monitor this story, try to get some of her family members on the show. This stuff's got to stop. It drives me crazy. I was sick to my stomach when I watched this video. I was sick. And it's terrible. Obviously, there's a lot of other news to cover today in the political world. Kamala Harris announced that she will be making her first campaign stop in Milwaukee. And the right, they are freaking out. Donald Trump is freaking out. The MAGA right, they are freaking out because they understand that Kamala Harris poses a threat to Donald Trump. One of those people that's freaking out, I want to play you the audio. That would be House Speaker Mike Johnson. Listen to what he had to say in regards to Kamala Harris now apparently being the nominee to be president on the left.
And in some of the states, there are impediments to just switching someone out like that. 14 million people went through the process and chose this nominee, Joe Biden. Now a handful of people have gotten together and decided he's no longer suitable. That's not how this system works. They are violating democratic principles. And I think that's a real problem, and I think there'll be a lot said about that in the days ahead.
Well, there could be a lot said about it, you frickin' idiot, but they're not breaking any laws. They're not breaking any laws. Mike Johnson sees this black woman as a threat. He knows. So what is he trying to say? Oh, well, the Democrats are breaking the law. No, they're not. Joe Biden is stepping aside. He's too old. His health is in question. His mental health is in question. So he's stepping aside. There's nothing against the law. They're not going to win. And they're, again, trying to say and do whatever they can. I got bad news for MAGA Republicans. Joe Biden ain't running for re-election. And I told you they would start going with this DEI hire nonsense. Representative Tim Burchett, a conservative Republican from Tennessee, attacking Vice President Kamala Harris as being a DEI hire. Again, these crusty white Republicans might as well call her the N-word. Have a listen to Tim Burchett.
Biden said, first off, he said he's going to hire a black female for vice president, and that he just skipped over. What about white females? What about any other group? It just, when you go down that route, you take mediocrity, and that's what they have right now as vice president.
Are you suggesting she was a DEI hire?
100%. She was a DEI hire. He said he was going to hire, and she didn't. Her record is abysmal at best.
Her record is abysmal at best. I'd love to get into specifics with this racist turd, Tim Burchett, this Klan member. First of all, just because Joe Biden said, I'd like to hire a black woman, doesn't mean that she was mediocre. This is a woman, number one, with a great education, a former attorney general who has an illustrious career. Now, if you don't like some of the things she's done in her career policy-wise, you're entitled to your opinion. But to call her mediocre, Tim Burchett is a racist pig. Let's just call it for what it is. Tim Burchett is your typical crusty, middle-aged white Republican who wants to tell all women what to do with their body. He's not for helping, not for maternity leave. He's against tax breaks for the poor and middle class. Tim Burchett is your typical crusty, middle-aged white Republican Klan member. That's who Tim Burchett is. He might as well be a member of the Proud Boys. You racist pig, you. You might as well just call her the N-word. Just do it. We all know what you're thinking, Tim. We all know. And then there's powder white Elizabeth Hasselbeck. Remember her Remember her? She's been away for a long time. The idiot who used to be on The View. Yes, she is a complete idiot. Only popular because of who her husband is. Listen to what Elizabeth Hasselbeck had to say about the times we're living in right now in the Democrat Party.
I want to commend you first, if I may, for reminding your viewers continuously since the 10-day ago near assassination attempt on former President Trump, because the mainstream media is in manipulation mode right now. They don't want us talking about that. That's why the timing of this announcement, the text breakup from the election, and proceedings going forward with Joe Biden, that's why this announcement came right now. They don't want us talking about what happened. They don't want us talking about a resilient man who faced a near assassination and stood up with resiliency. They certainly didn't want us talking about the hearings today. They certainly didn't want us talking about security failings. So what do? A text breakup and a switcheroo, and here we are today. And The View is, of course, doing what The View does best. They're going to pump the girl candidate no matter what, when all of a sudden gender matters to them.
What the hell is Elizabeth Hasselbeck talking about? What a dumb ditz she is. What a dummy. This is why you're not on The View anymore, because you're a moron. First of all, if you want to call it left-wing network, was covering the hearings. What the hell is she talking about? In fact, some of them covered it live. CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC. They all covered the hearings. What the F is Elizabeth Hasselbeck talking about? And of course, nobody on this right-wing network questions her. I would say, hey, Liz, you are aware that CNN covered the hearings live, right? You are aware that we're all still covering the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. What the hell are you talking about? There's no new news right now. We had the hearings yesterday. There's nothing new. The investigation is ongoing. What is she talking about? Manipulation media? I would go to the contrary. All the right is talking about is how Kamala is married to a white man and talking about her cackle of a laugh. Manipulation media. What the hell is she talking about? These people are so stupid. Elizabeth Hasselbeck is so dumb. Yes, I believe she has the intelligence level of Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's so stupid. And she got destroyed on The View because she's stupid. Okay, you have Republicans now at times that are on The View that I think do a pretty good job because they're intelligent. Hasselbeck is a moron. Manipulation media. So we're not supposed to cover the story that the president of the United States is not running for re-election in probably one of the biggest stories in my lifetime. We're not supposed to cover the story that for the first time in American history, we have a black female that's going to be running for president, Liz, white powder Liz. We're not supposed to be covering that. What? We're just supposed to be covering more. What else could we say about the assassination attempt? We know who did it. It's an ongoing investigation. We've covered the hearings. We know that, and by the way, the head of the Secret Service has stepped down. What else can we cover right now? Other than your stupid right-wing conspiracy theories that it might have been an inside job. What else is there to cover? We're continuing to monitor the story. We'll wait until the investigation concludes. We've covered the man who died. Many people have interviewed family members and people who were shot. There's nothing more to cover right now. You stupid ditz, you. The manipulation media, the manipulation media. She sounds like that moron Sarah Palin. They're both dumb idiots. The media. It's the media. So stupid, these people. They're manipulating. They're not covering it. Meanwhile, CNN covers the hearings live, you stupid ditz, you. Oh, my God. Thank God there are people out there with a brain. Thank God there are people out there that are willing to call out this BS nonsense. Like Kentucky Governor Beshear, talking a little bit about Senator J.D. Vance, by the way, who once again we got to keep saying this, compared Donald Trump to Adolf Hitler. And J.D. Vance has been going after Beshear, who's one of the favorites to be Kamala Harris's VP. Listen to what Beshear had to say on CNN yesterday about J.D. Vance.
No one wanted it this way. Joe Biden.
I think we got the wrong cut there. We definitely have the wrong one there. We want Kentucky Governor Beshear on Senator J.D. Vance. Do we have that cut? If not, we'll move on.
Listen, J.D.
There we go. That's it. Okay, go ahead. This is Kentucky Governor Beshear. We played the wrong cut there. Here we go.
Listen, J.D. Vance is a phony. He's fake. I mean, he first says that Donald Trump is like Hitler, and now he's acting like he's Lincoln. I mean, the problem with J.D. Vance is he has no conviction, but I guess his running mate has 34.
Amen, brother. Amen. You got him there. was really weird, too. Did you see the video of J.D. Vance bragging about how he enjoys Diet Mountain Dew? That was a very strange video. And then this awkward laugh. And we're learning from some involved in the Trump campaign that even Donald Trump is now questioning choosing J.D. Vance after spending a little bit of time with him. Yeah, the guy has no personality. He's awkward. He's weird. And he once compared you to Adolf Hitler. So maybe it wasn't the best pick. But guess what? It's probably too late now. Maybe Donald Trump should step down. Maybe the Republicans will ask him to step down. I also wanted to play you this. This is Kamala Harris's new campaign ad. It just came out yesterday. I think it's pretty powerful. I think they could actually do a better job. I have some criticisms of it, but this is the new Kamala Harris campaign ad. Have a listen to this.
No one wanted it this way. Joe Biden is a good man, a good American, a great president. But time and the burden of the office means it's time to step aside, to put a warrior into the political arena, ready to take on Donald Trump, to face up to the un-American plan Trump and Project 2025 will impose. Vice President Kamala Harris is ready, experienced, and as a tough prosecutor, Kamala Harris dealt with men like Trump all the time. Rapists, con men, frauds, criminals. She's used to guys like Trump, used to putting them in their place. Kamala Harris will bring something to Trump he's rarely seen. Justice.
I think it's a pretty good campaign ad. I'm interested to see Kamala over the course of the next couple weeks, how she does. Not everybody's on board. I certainly am. As I said, I would vote for a ham sandwich over Donald Trump, and Kamala Harris is no ham sandwich. I believe she's a very intelligent lady. I believe that she is very capable. I believe she would be a very good president. I'm interested to see who she picks as her VP, but I hope that she can debate Donald Trump. I don't think that'll go very well for Donald Trump. I believe the Republicans are in panic mode, as I said before, and I'll say again, every day until November, you're going to hear them go after Kamala Harris because she has a white husband. You're going to hear them go after Kamala Harris because maybe she talks differently than them. You're going to hear them go after Kamala Harris because of her laugh, perhaps. And they're going to hear them talk about how, she put all these marijuana drug dealers in jail. By the way, she put about 47 people in jail. But you'll never hear Republicans talk about that. So on one side, they want to say, listen, Democrats, they're failures when it comes to the law. They don't put people behind bars. They're not tough enough on crime. And then on the other side, you hear them say, Kamala Harris put too many people in jail for marijuana crimes. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. You're going to hear that. You're going to hear the nonsense about how she slept her way to the top, which is also a lie. And those same idiots out there that are talking about our vice president and the fact that allegedly she might have had an affair many, many years ago are the same idiots that have no problem at all supporting a liable sexual abusing rapist. That's okay, but let's talk about an alleged relationship that might have been inappropriate that Kamala, and by the way, she didn't break any laws, that Kamala Harris might have had. We don't even know, decades ago. These people have zero credibility, but you're going to hear about this stuff every single day. The DEI hire, by the way, idiots, just because Joe Biden said that I'd like to hire a black woman doesn't mean that she wasn't qualified for the job, because clearly she was. The person that wasn't qualified for the job is Donald J. Trump. You stupid fools. Just because every day he puts on 8 layers of orange makeup and his father gave him a $500 million company didn't mean that he is qualified to be the president of the United States, with the thousands of civil lawsuits that he lost and the hundreds of companies that have filed for bankruptcy. Just because that happened doesn't mean that he should have been qualified to be the president of the United States. Just because his father was arrested at a Klan rally, well, maybe that does make him qualified to some right-wingers out there. I don't know. But you're going to hear these attacks every day. All right, so this is going to be very interesting up next. He's a billionaire, and he's known as one of the biggest Democrat donors on the planet, probably right behind George Soros. However, he has not donated his money to the Democrats. He didn't donate his money to Joe Biden, and he's not donating his money to Kamala Harris, even though he spent time with her. He's going to tell us coming up next who he's backing, who he is financially supporting, and why. And then we will take some phone calls on the other side of the break, and you'll be able to talk to Jay Bloom and talk to him coming up next. Number to call, 702-221-7283. Again, 702-221-7283. Check out my good friends at Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. Today's Tuesday. You're in luck. If you got a TAM card, you get $50 in free slot play just for going in the door. Check it out. Jackson's Barn Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. Great food specials, great food, great atmosphere, great people, great place to catch a game. Check them out. Jackson's Barn Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. The self-made billionaire himself, Jay Bloom, will be joining us in studio next. We'll take some phone calls on the other side. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Who would have thought there'd be so many kids playing ice hockey in the desert? Jake Helps Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, founded by Gina Yusufzai 8 years ago, made it possible for families who can't afford the equipment and fees. Donate today at www.hockeyforkids.org and help us continue making a difference. Join us in supporting Jake Helps Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, where every kid gets a shot at the starting line. Just a reminder, our website is www.hockeyforkids.org.
Have you ever dreamed of having your own radio show or a podcast, but just didn't think it was possible? Well, dreams can come true. Radio U. Radio U is a 5-day course that'll teach you how to acquire your dream show. We'll teach you how to host, how to write commercial, how to interview, how to market, how to write a contract, and most importantly, how to monetize your dream radio show. You'll learn from some of the best in the business with over 75 years in broadcast experience. You'll learn from people like me. And the best part? Every single student will be live on the radio as part of the class. Plus, one student from each class will get their very own radio show. You'll be live on the air right here in Las Vegas. Radio U. The 5-day course is being offered at $699. For more information, give Radio U a call. 702-763-5024. That's 702-763-5024. Or check them out at radioyou101.com.
Tired of the same old date night? Craving a deeper connection with your partner? O-Box is your escape into a world of romance and passion. Each month, discover a box filled with personalized surprises, exciting activities, and a love story written just for the two of you. Ignite desire, share laughter, and make memories that last a lifetime. Your O-Box journey culminates into a beautiful love novel. Ready to write the first thrilling chapter? Let the O-Box adventure begin. Visit our website, obox.com. That's OBOXXX.com and get started.
Hello, I'm Ron Quince, and I'm running for Congress as a nonpartisan candidate in District 1. I'm dedicated to serving our entire community. In this challenging time, it's more important than ever to have leaders who focus on unity and progress. I believe in putting people over politics and finding practical solutions that benefit us all. Never stop believing in America, no matter our troubles and turmoil. We can and we will do better. We must be brave. Stop voting for those politicians who care about their career and gaining power but don't improve our lives. I believe in America and I believe in you. You need a candidate who believes in policy over party because you deserve better. In Nevada, every voice matters. I humbly ask for your vote this coming election, November 5th. To learn how we can create a better America, please visit QuinceForNevada.com. Paid for by Ron Quince for Congress.
Time now for the most listened to talk show in Vegas. Talking with those on the right, the left, and everywhere in between. It's Pushing the Limits with Brian Shapiro.
I hate everything about this Brian Shapiro guy.
This show will make you laugh, make you cry, and it might raise Brian's blood pressure.
You know what, dude? You know what, dude? People like you, all you do is make excuses for the orange turd, and I've had it.
Buckle up, because it's Pushing the Limits with Brian Shapiro.
You're different. I like you.
Now, here's Brian.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us. Programming note for you. Congressman out of Massachusetts, he was one of the first Democrats to come forward to ask Joe Biden to step aside. Seth Moulton will be joining us, as well as the Mooch. Anthony Scaramucci will be joining us on the show tomorrow. So big lineup. The man joining me in studio right now, I call him a friend, of course. He probably hates that. But in all seriousness, he is a self-made billionaire, and he, in his lifetime, has donated tons of money to the Democrat Party to different candidates. But as of recently, he's kind of switched his tone a little bit. He supported Republican Governor Joe Lombardo, who won, and now he is not supporting Kamala Harris, and he's going to tell us why. Jay Bloom joining us in studio. Jay, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Did I characterize you accurately, fairly accurately? You are a self-made billionaire. Is that fair to say?
I don't talk about my personal finances, but yes, I am self-made.
Okay, fair enough. And for the most part, for most of your life, you've donated to Democrats. That's also very fair to say.
Well, so I started as a Reagan Republican, and then the party just drifted too far right, and I went independent. Then I went Democrat. Now the Democrats are drifting too far left, and I'm back to independent or nonpartisan.
All right, so we'll definitely get to that, but let's get to the juicy stuff right off the bat. You have not donated to the Joe Biden campaign. You've met Joe Biden. You know Joe Biden. You've met Kamala Harris. Why? Why are you not supporting Kamala Harris, and why did you not support Joe Biden?
Well, I think, the Democratic Party, both parties have divisions within the party. In the Democratic Party, you have maybe 11% of the base that's far left, the woke crowd. And, I've seen them take steps that I just don't agree with, that don't represent me anymore. And for the same reason I left the Republican Party, I've just grown very frustrated with the Democratic Party. Everything from the unrealized capital gains tax that they tried to push through would be disastrous, to pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas rallies. I mean, I saw rainbow flags for Hamas. These people are not thinking anymore, right?
Well, yeah, obviously I don't support that either. I'd like to think that most Democrats don't support that sort of stuff.
Most Democrats don't support that stuff, but the minority that does has enough influence in the party that the party leadership doesn't come out against it.
Well, yeah, I've talked about that, and I agree with you there. I've certainly criticized leadership for not calling out the Ilhan Omar's more and the Rashida Tlaib. So I'm certainly with you on that. So with that being said, people want to know, even though I know the answer to this, who have you supported here for president, and who have you donated money to, and whose side are you on here?
So it's been interesting because I spent time with Joe Biden, with Donald Trump, and with Robert F. Kennedy. And of the three of them, Robert F. Kennedy seems to have the best grasp of history, of current situations, and the best plan to get through it. I know people hear Robert F. Kennedy and they bristle because of what they've seen in the press, right? They've seen he's a crackpot, he's an anti-vaxxer, he's really not that person that you see in the news. I've spent time with him, and he gets mischaracterized a lot.
So let me start with this, though, because I'm not a huge Robert F. Kennedy Jr. guy. But what did you make of that phone call? Donald Trump picks up the phone, calls Robert F. Kennedy Jr. When Donald Trump does that, there's got to be something in it for him. He doesn't just pick up the phone and call somebody out of the goodness of his heart because he likes Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He picks up the phone and he wants something for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. What does he want? He wants him to drop out of the race because he knows that he's going to take votes away from Trump. And he says, come, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically says, if you drop out of the race, I'll put you in my administration. Why doesn't Robert F. Kennedy Jr. respond and say, no way, I would never do that. I don't support you. I don't want to work with you. That's what bothers me. In that conversation, I expect that from Donald Trump because he's a snake. I expect that. Why didn't Robert F. Kennedy Jr. push back? There was no pushback in that video of that phone call, and that's what was really disappointing to me. That has to be a little disappointing to you, no?
Well, I think there's just a couple of minute clip of the phone call. It's not the entire phone call. So I don't know what's not in the video that was circulated.
Why did his son release it?
I don't know.
I know Robert F. Kennedy Jr. apologized for it, and he couldn't have been happy from his son for releasing the video, right?
I think he just wasn't thinking.
Yeah.
That was a private conversation between a former president and a presidential candidate. And that should not have been posted.
But here's what frustrates me. Robert F. Kennedy, and you're right, there's only a couple minutes of the video that was released, but Robert F. Kennedy Jr. leans to the left on many issues, like many issues. You could be talking about the economy, taxes, abortion. He's very liberal when it comes to social issues for the most part, right? You would agree with that, right?
I would. He's
Right.
more libertarian than Democrat or Republican.
So why would he even entertain that conversation? Why wouldn't he stop Trump and just say, no, Mr. Former President, or whatever you want to call him, I couldn't work in your administration because I disagree with this, 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 and this. And he praised Donald Trump. After the call, in articles and interviews, he said he appreciated the fact that Donald Trump reached out to him. This wasn't, hey, Mr. Kennedy, how you doing? No, this wasn't one of those things. This wasn't Joe Biden picking up the phone saying, Mr. Trump, are you okay? We're sorry what happened to you. We're praying for you. That was actually picking up the phone and caring about somebody. This was Donald Trump picking up the phone, wanting something from Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and that was for Kennedy to get out of the race because it benefits Trump. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has to know that. Why is he praising Trump?
Well, all right. So you have kind of a compound question there, right? So first of all, you start with the premise that Kennedy in the race hurts Trump. And
sure.
It doesn't.
You don't think so?
Kennedy supporters, they've been polled, and Kennedy supporters are pulling almost 50-50. I think it's 49-51.
I don't know if I agree with that poll.
Well, I don't have a poll that says otherwise.
Okay, I've been to some of these Robert F. Kennedy Jr. rallies. I went to one even with you. And you cannot convince me that the majority of those that are at some of these rallies are people that would vote for Biden. They're wearing anti-vax shirts. They're wearing right-wing nonsense, stuff on their shirts. Come on, man.
I know exactly who you're talking about. But
these are right-wing people. These are a lot of...
That's a handful of people that stand out in your memory. The vast majority of the people were...
They didn't look like Democrats to me. They didn't seem like lefties to me. These seem like...
What does a Democrat look like?
I think, well, first of all, I look at the demo. Number one, okay, he didn't have an extremely diverse demo in the three rallies that I've been to. We know that the overwhelming majority of minorities vote Democrat, not Republican. Predominantly white people that seem to support Robert F. Kennedy Jr. That's number one. Number two, I'm looking at the stuff that they're wearing and talking about wokeness. And this wasn't a handful of people talking about DEI and wokeness, and this weren't just a few people. And I'm just looking at these kinds of people, and I said to myself, these look like the same kinds of people that would show up at a Trump rally. I'm not saying everybody's like that. Certainly there are some Democrats that will be voting for Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but it seems to me that the reason why Trump made this phone call is because he believes, and I think he's right, that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will hurt his campaign and take votes away from him.
I don't know that it's that he would hurt Trump's campaign. I think it's more that he would bring the other half of his support that would have support Biden over to support Trump. Mm-hmm. He definitely is a swing candidate, right? And if he's I would turn your question around and go, why aren't the Democrats calling Kennedy?
I'll tell you why, and I'm not a Democrat, but I can tell you why I would never vote for him as president. And we'll get to this conversation about, we could talk about who Kamala Harris is going to pick as VP. And yeah, I do think if she picked Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I think that would help the Democrats. And I know some people think I'm crazy for saying that, but we probably agree there. I'm sick of him talking about vaccines. He's not a doctor. I'm sick of his conspiracy theories. I'm sick of him trying to convince people like me that the vaccines are bad for you. I listen to infectious disease experts and I listen to medical professionals. I don't want to listen to a guy who wants to be a politician. And when I listen to his rallies, if he brought it up and spoke for a few minutes about it, even though I would disagree with him, I would be willing to put that aside. The guy talks, more than half of his speeches are about vaccines.
All right. So
I'm turned off by it.
So let's set the record straight.
Yeah.
All right. When he talks about vaccines, he's not really talking about the vaccine itself, more so the vaccine mandates are what he objected to. And it's specific, he supports the vaccines for like mumps, measles, rubella. I mean, he supports the traditional vaccines that are well tested and proven. His problem was when it came to the COVID vaccine, that was a brand new technology. It was untested. It was rushed through without testing. And his position is, as I understand it, we didn't understand the virus at the time. We didn't understand the vaccine at the time. We didn't understand side effects. We still don't know long-term effects. So his problem was not if you want the vaccine, you shouldn't take it. His problem was it shouldn't be mandated that you take it. Because we were in a situation where if you didn't take the vaccine, you couldn't fly, you couldn't go into stores. Some people lost their jobs.
I understand that. And that is
his position was you shouldn't force an experimental drug on people. And I think that's a reasonable position.
Well, if that was all he said, I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with that. But I've been at his rallies. Forget about the videos that have circulated about him saying that he believes that COVID was targeting certain ethnic groups and stuff, which was, by the way, bat-you-know-what crazy. And he said it. He said it on tape. And he said some other things that were incendiary comments about vaccines, which are absurd. But I'm going by just the things I've heard him say. He's also blamed Vladimir Zelensky for the war in the Ukraine, didn't put any blame on Vladimir Putin. I've heard him talk about this in person in Las Vegas, and I was extremely turned off by it. I thought it was outrageous. Now, if you want to criticize Ukraine and Zelensky for certain things, I think that's a fair conversation to have. But when you're going to look people in the eye and you're going to say that you believe Zelensky is more to blame for the war in Ukraine than Vladimir Putin, then I think you're absolutely crazy. That is a crazy position for him to have. And guess what? It's a position that many on the far right have today.
So what do you understand his rationale for that position to be?
Well, he believes, and he talked about it, by the way, he believes that Zelensky should have gone to the bargaining table with Vladimir Putin, which is, by the way, absurd. Never in Vladimir Putin's life has he ever been honorable in any sort of conversation in bargaining. He's never done that his entire life. You could look at his history. And for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to suggest that Zelensky should have picked up the phone, hey, Mr. Putin, is just as crazy when Donald Trump says I can end the war in a day by talking to Mr. Putin. It's outrageous, and Kennedy has no idea what he's talking about. The idea that he thinks Zelensky could have saved hundreds of thousands of lives because he didn't pick up the phone, it's just stupid. I don't know what else to say. It's a stupid remark. I heard him say it. He was asked about it, and he was asked that question. Well, what did Zelensky do wrong? I mean, it's absurd. You have to admit that's absurd.
Well, all right. I think you're only talking about the second half of the story, right? The first half of the story is, why did Russia invade Ukraine in the first place, right? And we've had this conversation a couple of times now, right? You have we bear some of the blame in terms of provoking this war, right? When the Soviet Union broke up, the United States agreed that we wouldn't move any further east, right? And for the last 30 years, for decades, every administration, Republican, Democrat, didn't matter. Every administration knew that Ukraine was a third rail if you talk to them about joining NATO. Because if Ukraine is in NATO, you're now putting UN troops, American troops, missiles 300 miles from Moscow. It's the Cuban Missile Crisis in reverse, right? And President Biden, and again, I like a lot of what President Biden does, but President Biden opened the door to discussions about Ukraine joining NATO, right? So now he put Vladimir Putin, and I'm not a Vladimir Putin apologist. I think he's a ruthless killer, right? But he put him in a position of having to deal with a Cuban Missile Crisis type situation. Now, I don't agree with Vladimir Putin's response, but if along the lines of what Kennedy's saying, if Zelensky came back and said, we're not joining NATO, there's a chance that Putin would have backed off the invasion if the catalyst for the invasion was removed.
I hear what you're saying, but in the speeches that I've heard and in the comments that Robert Kennedy Jr. has made, he's put more blame on Zelensky, and I think that's extremely irresponsible. We know that Vladimir Putin, and I'm speaking in layman's terms here, is an evil, murderous dictator who's killed many innocent people of his own and others. And the conversation needs to start there. And Kennedy doesn't start there. He starts with blaming Zelensky. I was extremely turned off by that. I'm sick of him talking about the vaccines. Now, I do agree with him on a lot of social issues, whether it be the right for a woman to choose or taxes, healthcare. I do agree with him on a lot of other issues.
Environmental issues.
I'm sure.
Pretty much down the list, he checks off about 90% of the Democratic boxes. I think people have come to this they don't like the other politician because he has a policy or two they don't like. There is no perfect candidate. You're not going to agree with any candidate on 100% of the issues.
There is no perfect candidate, and I would certainly vote for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. over Donald Trump. But as I've said before, I would vote for a ham sandwich over Donald Trump. At the same time, there are some people that have floated around the idea, and I'm not saying Kamala Harris would do this because she won't, and the Democrat Party won't do it. But I will be the first one to admit if Kamala Harris did choose Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as her VP, which she won't, but if she did, I actually do think it would help her candidacy, and I think it would gain her some traction from maybe some moderate Republicans and independents. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I think Kennedy has an appeal to the moderates and the independents that actually listen to his message and don't just take the sound bites off the news.
Yeah.
Right. And Kennedy has 15 to 20% of the electorate, and if he goes with Trump, they're going to go with him. And if he goes to Kamala Harris, they're going to go with him to Kamala.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it was very smart of Trump to reach out to Kennedy, and I think it's very foolish of the Democrats not to. Democrats tend to put ideology ahead of winning.
Why would they reach out to Kennedy, though? Because they would want him on a ticket. What would be their reasoning? Because I think the only reason why Trump did it is for his own personal gain, so that Kennedy could maybe get out of the race.
Well,
why would Democrats reach out to Robert
for
F.
the
Kennedy?
same reason?
Yeah.
For the same reason. Say, come support Kamala.
Yeah.
And, I don't think he'd be the vice president, but, I mean, they can make him a cabinet secretary or...
I got you. So reach out. You think the Democrats should reach out to Kennedy and maybe offer him a position if he supports Kamala Harris? Is that what you're saying?
That's what Donald Trump did, and I think it was a very smart move to do that. Now, that's not to say that Kennedy doesn't believe he can't win. It's.
You believe he can win?
There's a path, but it's a narrow path.
Yeah.
Right. But there are situations. Look,
I don't think he's got more than 10% of the vote.
No, he does. He does.
Where? What poll shows that?
There are 3 of them that I saw. Quinnipiac was one.
He's got more than 10%.
Yeah, he's over 15%. When we looked at it for the debates,
Mm-hmm.
the CNN debates, he qualified for the debates because he was over.
So let's just say that's true. He's got 15%. That still means he has no chance to win.
Depends.
How could you win the presidency with 15% of the country voting for you? I don't understand that.
The majority of the people that are voting for Trump and Biden, 70% of the country doesn't like either candidate, and Kamala doesn't make the situation better than Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's a lateral move at best. Right? So you're going to have 70% of the people that are voting for Kamala, not because they support Kamala, but because they're adverse to Trump. They can't have Trump as president. And the effect of that is they go, well, I would vote for Kennedy, but I can't afford to have Trump win, so I'm going to vote for Kamala, even though I like Kennedy better. And it's the same in the other direction. So it's if people believe he can win.
I don't.
I understand. Most people don't. But if people believe he can win, if you just vote your conscience, they say. If you just voted who you think would be the best candidate, he would win.
I would vote for Kamala over Robert F. Kennedy Jr. every day of the week. I know we disagree on that. I know you've spent time with Kamala Harris. I think we both agree that, yes, she is an intelligent lady. She is well educated. But what I want to do is I want to give people the opportunity to ask you questions. I've asked you enough questions, and I want to give our callers and our listeners an opportunity. So we're joined by Jay Bloom. I'll say it for him. He is a self-made billionaire, even though he doesn't like to brag about that. And he's donated a lot of money to the Democrat Party over the years. Let's be honest. He's not donating any money to Kamala Harris. He is not donating any money to Joe Biden. He's supporting Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Whether you agree or disagree with him, now's the opportunity to call in and speak with Jay Bloom. 702-221-7283. And again, the number to call. If you would like to be a part of the conversation, now's the time to do it. 702-221-7283. Let's start off with Mark. Mark, you're first up with Jay Bloom. Thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
Hello, Brian and Jay. Mark from Pennsylvania. I just looked up the national polls, and Robert Kennedy is polling at 6.4%. So I'm not sure if he's looking at a GOP poll or something like that, but I'm looking at a very reputable national poll, and it's got him at 6.7%. Where he's getting this 10 plus, I don't know.
So,
secondly, I'd like to ask him, does he have any experience in the medical field? I'd like to ask him that question first.
You can ask him anything you want. Go ahead, Jay.
Yes.
Yeah. So as to your first question, there are polls that have a wide range. I've seen polls at 6%. I've seen polls at 23%. But the polls that CNN was willing to accept for the debates were at 15%. To qualify for the debates, you had to be at 15% or greater with a poll that was acceptable to CNN, and he had 3 of them, right? So, and you can research CNN debates and what polls Robert Kennedy had that qualified him for it. But I don't know what poll you're looking at, but I have seen polls at 6%, and I've seen 23%. Those are the outliers. As to your second question, no, he's not a doctor, but he's got...
No, I'm asking if you have any medical experience.
I have medical... short of being a paramedic in college, no.
Okay. I was in the medical field all my life. I started out in the Army as a medic, eventually moved into the operating room assistant surgeons. I'm sure when Brian mentioned that he's an anti-vaxxer, he didn't mean the mumps, the measles, things like that. What he actually meant was an anti-vaxxer for COVID-19.
Correct.
Now, that's what Brian actually meant.
Yes, correct.
What I am saying about anti-vaxxers, I learned also that you never say always and you never say everybody, because those two words don't exist. You can't label something, it always happens, and you can't label something everybody agrees, because those are false comments. So what I'm trying to bring out is that a majority of Democrats know that COVID works, and and you even mentioned this. You mentioned that it's an experimental drug, and that's why Robert was an anti-vaxxer. Actually, it wasn't an experimental drug. It was experimented on people before it became nationally acceptable. Thousands and thousands of people volunteered to take the virus vaccine for COVID, and it was proven to be effective. Now, what Robert Kennedy is saying is that he didn't want people to be mandated to get the vaccine if you're going on a plane or if you're going somewhere or whatever. You should be able to do that. But by doing that, when it was this early in the infection, that people with underlying conditions can still die with a vaccine. So what Robert Kennedy is saying is, I don't care if other people die. I want to be able to fly with COVID and not have to get vaccines.
Well, to an extent,
That's what Robert
I'll let
Kennedy
Jay.
is saying.
Yeah, let's let Jay respond to that.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
so-
Thank you, Mark.
So, it's an interesting question, right? So, if you have the vaccine, then if you're sitting next to someone with the COVID virus, the vaccine should protect you, right? If it works as a vaccine, that's the purpose of the vaccine.
It should, but still, obviously, people that are more vulnerable with comorbidities.
Well, and that's another issue that he has. He has, why are you mandating the vaccine for everybody, right? Because a lot of people don't have comorbidities. Young children are not very susceptible to serious side effects of COVID. So, there's this one size fits all approach that didn't make sense to him, and this whole idea of if you have the vaccine, you're safe if the vaccine is effective, and I believe it is, right? But he also was weighing it against the cost of the vaccine in terms of side effects. And there's he's not a doctor, but he has studies from the Mayo Clinic that show that there's a correlation between a control group and a test group where the COVID vaccine caused some respiratory issues or heart issues.
Well, what do you guys think out there? Again, opening up the phone lines, we're joined by Jay Bloom, huge Democrat donor, but he is not supporting Kamala Harris. He is supporting Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Your thoughts on that? 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you want to be a part of the program. Let's go to Roy. Roy is next up on PTL. Hi, Roy.
221.
Roy, are you there?
I have something to say.
Yeah, Roy, go ahead. Lower down your radio if you can, please.
Hi, guys. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Roy.
I'm here. Good afternoon, guys. The reason I actually called in before was to say I wanted to tell you, Brian, that Joe Biden did not say he wanted to hire a black woman vice president. He wanted to hire a woman for black.
Correct. I misspoke. That is correct. Yep.
Yeah. He did say he wanted to hire a black woman for the Supreme Court.
Right.
But
correct.
Okay. Aside from that, now I'll get on to Jay. I happen to think it's a good idea to have more than two political parties in this country. I don't even think three is enough. I think 4 or 5 would be ideal because there are so many differences within each party. But just on the fact of the vaccine, all vaccines have potential side effects. Not everybody handles it the same. And you could see the same thing when you see some of these advertisements for drugs on television. Mm-hmm. They all come with 30 or 40 different warnings. Could do this, could do that, could do this. I mean, that's part of life, and you can't control that. So I still think that by taking the vaccine, certainly more lives were saved than by not taking it.
Well, and
So
that's you're right. Every vaccine, everything has side effects. Even the food we eat has side effects, right? But,
yes.
But what he's saying is that in the studies that he's seen from the Mayo Clinics, the doctors at the Mayo Clinics, the side effects are worse than the benefit of the cure, right? So they did. Oh shoot, I can't remember the numbers, but it was 2-to-1, 2 lives lost for every life saved.
Mm-hmm.
In the studies that he showed me from the Mayo Clinic.
I don't know if I
haven't heard
believe that.
and I don't buy that at all.
Yeah, I don't know if I believe
I know
that.
about 1 million people died from COVID, and a lot of people who didn't die still have severe side effects from it.
Sure.
My wife and I both took the COVID, and about a year and a half later, we both got COVID, and I've had worse colds than that. And I'm sure the vaccine was the reason why we didn't have a real serious issue. It was just very simply, I was tired, I was sniffly, and so was my wife. And 2-3 days later, we were done. And I'm convinced the vaccine made the difference.
I get it.
But,
And I took the vaccine as well.
But getting off of that topic, I want to ask.
He's just saying you should have the right to decide whether or not you take it, especially since under Donald Trump and Operation Warp Speed, they set aside all the safety barriers and all the testing that you'd normally do for something like that.
Well, that's another story. I mean, they want credit for Operation Warp Speed, yet they say it's poison. So, I mean, you can't have it both ways. But do you feel that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is ready for prime time? The guy's never held office his entire life. And now all of a sudden you think he's ready to be the next president of the United States? I think that's a very fair question to ask.
It is. I mean, he wasn't a community organizer like Barack Obama, but he's been an environmental person who's been pretty active for a long time. He's gone after Monsanto. He cleaned up the East River in New York. I've seen him speak. He's been around politics, obviously, his whole life, from the time he was a kid.
I don't. If his last name wasn't Kennedy, I don't think we'd even be having these conversations, to be quite frank.
Well, let me ask you a question then, Roy. You might disagree with me on this one. Do you think it wouldn't help Democrats and Kamala Harris if she, and I know this isn't going to happen, but if she chose Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as her VP, wouldn't that bring them that extra 10 or 15% of the vote that they needed to defeat Donald Trump?
I presume it would, but you're right. It's not going to happen, but I do think it would.
I think it would help, and I would be on board with it, not because I'm a big Robert F. Kennedy Jr. fan, but because we all want this. We all want to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't get elected, doesn't get reelected. I mean, that's what this is all about, right?
I think that's her best shot at winning, is to capture that independent, middle of the road.
She has to do that.
15-20% of the vote that Kennedy's going to capture.
Call me crazy, folks. If you think me and Jay are crazy, I'm just proposing it. I'm just throwing it out there. Kamala Harris, we know who she's going to choose. It's going to be guy in Arizona, guy in Kentucky, or the guy in Pennsylvania, Mr. Shapiro. We know that's probably what's going to happen here. If she chose Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I don't like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. much more than a lot of you. But if she chose Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and do you believe he would work for Kamala Harris as a VP?
I don't know. I know he would accept the nomination, but I don't know if he would take the VP spot. But they should have the conversation, and that's why I said Trump was smart. Trump was smart to call him and have that conversation.
But Trump wasn't asking him to be his VP. That's already been chosen. Trump was telling him to bow out of the race.
Yeah.
I'm saying that reach out to him because, listen, I think if it was a Harris-Kennedy ticket, and I know there's a lot of Democrats listening to the show right now that think I'm crazy for saying that, but I'm speaking from the point of how do you defeat Donald Trump? What's the easiest pathway to victory? This isn't going to be easy, but I think that would make it easier.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's a question of do you like Harris-Kennedy as a ticket. I think it's a question of would you prefer Harris-Kennedy or Trump-Vance, right? Because if those are your two choices, even if you're not thrilled with Kennedy, it's still the cumulative effect of having his support behind Kamala puts her over the top, I believe. I think she's got a very tough challenge.
I think it's not going to be easy for her, but I do think the Democrats are in a much better position now than they were several days ago. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, so moving forward now, I think Republicans are the ones that have something to lose here in the next 4 months. We're hearing rumblings from Donald Trump's people. Some of them, I guess off the record, some sources are saying that he's beginning already to be uncomfortable with J.D. Vance and second-guessing his decision. I mean, J.D. Vance, he doesn't help the ticket at all. I said that the second they chose this guy. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Pam. Pam is next up on PTL. Hi, Pam. What's going on?
Good afternoon, Brian.
Yes,
do not
ma'am.
push Kennedy. Kennedy is not. No. Kennedy would be a bad choice for Kamala.
Why?
His whole family has already denounced him.
Okay, but hang on 1 second, Pam. Hear me out here. regardless of whether you dislike him or not. And by the way, I'm not a big Robert F. Kennedy Jr. fan either. Regardless of his family, and I'm going to let Jay respond to this too, but regardless of his family, what I am purely speaking of is a pathway to victory. And I personally believe that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. would give Kamala Harris help her with the independents and the moderate Republicans, and she would get that extra 10 or 15% jump that she would need to defeat Trump. That I'm not defending Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in some of his wacky positions, okay? All I'm simply saying is I think this would make the pathway easier for her. You disagree with that?
I question that logic.
Jay, what do you say?
I think she's already. I think she's on the road to a great victory. There, she has almost all the senators, almost all the Congress. She has 19 of 23 governors already supporting her. Melinda Gates is supporting her. The list goes on, and as each day and each hour goes by, more and more people are on board with her.
Jay, what do you say to that?
I don't think Kennedy is a good choice for her.
So a couple of things. First of all, that's a classic example of how we're being lied to by the press, right? When you say his whole family is against him, they're not. There are 6 Kennedy family members that work in the Biden administration that came out against him. But the majority, and he's got 100 family members more, and the majority of them support him. And a lot of them work for his campaign. So when they say his whole family's against him, that's not true, right? The second thing I would say is Kamala Harris, she's getting the support of the Democratic Party. She's unifying the party. But this party is not fired up like the Republicans are. When that sniper missed his shot and Donald Trump narrowly escaped an assassination attempt, the Trump supporters believe now that he was saved by God, and they're on a mission from God. They are so fired up. And you don't have that passion for Kamala on the Democratic side.
You don't know.
The people who are supporting Kamala.
Beto would be a better choice than Kennedy.
Well, I agree.
There's a lot of choices out there.
Well, I know
and
Beto.
Kennedy, I don't think Kennedy is her saving grace.
Well, I know Beto personally, and I've said this on social media. He's reached out to me a few times. I think he's a really good man, and I would support him 150%. I think that would be a fantastic choice. Would it help her win over independents and moderate Republicans? Because that's really what we're talking about here, right? Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about, listen, the MAGA Republicans, the extreme Republicans, they're going to be voting for Trump no matter what. Extreme people or I would say the overwhelming majority of Democrats will be supporting Kamala Harris. Those aren't the people that we're talking about here. We're talking about the people that either Trump or Kamala gets to. Independents and moderates, whoever gets those votes is going to win the presidency. And all I'm simply saying is even a Beto O'Rourke, who I like very much, I don't think you're going to get a lot of independents and moderate Republicans that are going to say, oh, okay, I'll support Kamala now. But if it was Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I think you would. That's the argument that I'm trying to make. That's my opinion.
Yeah, you're exactly
Fair
right.
enough.
You're going to capture that middle that's up in play.
Yeah. And again, I preface it by saying I don't like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. like Jay does. Okay, we disagree fundamentally on certain things. Do I think Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is this horrible guy? No, I don't. I think Trump is. But I don't like his views on a lot of different things. COVID, the vaccines. But I don't think Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a threat to our democracy like I feel like with Trump. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is not a rapist, right? If Kennedy lost an election, he'd admit it. He wouldn't incite an insurrection. And I also happen to like his wife, Cheryl Hines, very much because I'm a big Curb Your Enthusiasm fan. But Pam, listen, these are conversations that need to be had within the Democrat Party. We can agree to disagree on that. But the most important thing is we are all united in the fact that, at least the three of us are, in that Donald Trump cannot get back into the White House. And that's the most important thing. And Pam, and I do appreciate, I appreciate your call, Pam. Thank you so much. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. We've got the self-made billionaire. I know it makes Jay feel really uncomfortable when I keep saying that. And that's why I keep saying it, because I'm a jerk. But anyway, he's supporting Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and he's been supporting Democrats for most of his life. Taking some more calls now, 702-221-7283. Let's go to Brett. Brett is next up on PTL. Hi, Brett. What's going on?
Hey, Brian. How you doing?
Good. What's going on, Brett?
I had a question. It's off topic, but if I could just ask Jay, I'm curious what reason or what he learned about the Titan that kept him from going on that journey.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I talked to I talked to Stockton Rush for about 6 months before I started seriously, having the conversation to go. And my son started to do some research, and he found that video where it was controlled by a Game Boy controller, and he brought that to my attention. And he raised concerns.
Can I just interject real quickly? And sorry to interrupt, Jay, and then you can continue. For people that don't know what they're talking about, if you remember that mini submarine, what do you call it? What's
It was
the
a submersible.
Submersible.
The Titan
The Titan submersible. With how many people were on there?
5.
7, I believe.
Jay and his son were supposed to be on that submarine that exploded underwater. In fact,
Imploded.
It's more of an implosion.
Imploded. And the owner, right, the guy flew out here to try to coax you and your son to do it, and it was your son that you could say that ultimately saved your life and your by saying don't do it, right?
My son was the first one to raise the flags that there are problems here, and then the more I dove in, I found there were problems with the materials that he was using. I found there were problems with kind of his safety, his tolerance for safety. He thought his industry overspent on safety, so you could go and use things that are rated for less than you're going because they're overrated, right? They're underrated, so they're capable of doing more than the rating, and so there's no reason to needlessly spend money for a proper rating. I heard enough. I saw enough.
Thank God you didn't get on it.
It was a bad situation all the way around.
And by the way, that's how I met Jay. I saw him doing an interview on CNN, and I reached out to him on social media, and I met his son. I met him, and that's how I've known Jay ever since. And I'm very glad that he's here, and I'm very glad that his son raised some of those concerns, because his son was 150% correct. Very dangerous, and I feel for the families of those that were lost. It's a horrible situation. Thank you for the call, Brett. I appreciate
Thank you, Brett.
702-221. I just wanted to give people a little bit of background because some people might not remember. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Jay Bloom joining us in studio. Let's go to Nancy. Nancy is next up on PTL. Hi, Nancy. Where are you calling from?
Hi. I'm calling from Massachusetts.
Massachusetts. All right, Nancy. Well, you're on with Jay Bloom. Go right ahead.
Hi, Nancy.
Yes, hi, Jay. I don't know really much about you. I'm sorry to say I'm not up on things. But I'm just wondering, are you not concerned at all about Kennedy becoming like a Jill Stein? Is that any kind of concern to you at all?
No, everything I've seen about Kennedy, he pulls equally from both sides. And there's a couple of different things that can happen, right? We're going to see things this cycle that we've never seen before. With this switch, the Republicans are going to bring legal challenges in every state. Every state has different election laws, and they're going to say you can't switch out the candidates. And there's an open question. I think here in Nevada, we have you're not supposed to be able to switch out the candidate on the ballot after the 4th Friday in June, I believe it is. Right. So here we are in July, and they're switching out the candidate. And if the Republicans are successful in doing that, then Kamala won't be on the ballot, and it'll be RFK against Trump head to head, and polling head to head. A lot of times he beats Trump. And now follow this through. Let's say Kennedy, because of that ballot challenge, winds up on several state ballots and taking a couple of states. He's not going to get enough electoral college votes to win, but he can keep it from getting to 270, right? Where Kamala and Trump, neither one of them gets 270, and then it goes to Congress to decide who the president is. And the House votes on the president, and the Senate votes on the vice president, right? So now what happens in the House that's selecting the president? Democrats are in a minority, right? And the Republicans have a slight majority, but there are more never Trumpers than there are than there are congressmen that represent the majority.
You got one right here, that's for sure.
So what happens? I mean, they're not allowed to conduct any other business until they pick a president.
Yeah.
And they're going to go round and round and round. You remember when they selected a speaker and there was like 18
I remember
votes or something
that.
like that? We're going to be in that situation again.
Nancy, I do have some good news for you, though. I have some good news
Yeah.
for you. Your congressman, who I have, he's a war hero. Seth Moulton's going to be joining us on the show tomorrow, so you're going to want to hear that. He's out there in Massachusetts, and he's a good man, so he'll be joining us.
No, I'm familiar with Seth Moulton, so that sounds fine. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the call, Nancy. Appreciate you. I love my Massachusetts people. I grew up a big Boston Celtics fan. Oh, yeah. Who won the NBA championship? Oh, yeah, that's right. It was the Celtics. So, by the way, there was one time when I first met Jay where he was seriously considering buying an NBA team and bringing it out here to Las Vegas. I don't think financially it makes much sense for you anymore.
That's kind of run away on me.
Yeah, it's like 8 times more money now than it was. What, you could have bought the Minnesota Timberwolves for like $500 million, right, and brought them here. And now it's like what they're given a tag of like $8 billion to bring an NBA team here. It's absurd.
The numbers are getting much larger.
Yeah. Anyway, we can talk about that a little later. But 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Brenda. Brenda is next up on PTL. Hi, Brenda. Where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm calling from Pennsylvania.
All right, Pennsylvania. What's on your mind, Brenda?
I was hearing you talk. I mean, I kind of agree with you over Kennedy for the percentage points.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to tell you that I had a daughter, 44 years old, and my ex-husband, they both died 5 days apart from COVID.
Oh, I'm so
because
sorry.
they refused. Thank you. Because they refused to get the vaccine.
Mm.
The rest of the family did,
Mm-hmm.
and we are all still alive. And I know a lot of people don't agree, with pushing it, but she said if she ever got better to get out the hospital, she would take it. And I have a problem with people that push the anti-vax theory.
I do too. Brenda, I'm with you. I almost died of COVID. I was in the ICU for 2 weeks. This is way before the vaccines were available. And there are right-wing talk show hosts, multiple right-wing talk show hosts who spread their rhetoric and misinformation about vaccines, and they died of COVID. In fact, one of them, like your family member, sadly, right before they died, said, "Boy, if I knew what I knew now, I would have taken the vaccine." Well, guess what? It's too late now.
Right.
And another issue I have with that is they filled up all the beds with so many people that were not vaccinated, and a lot of people couldn't get surgeries and stuff because of that. So yeah, anyway, going back to the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talk, and that, I'm sure that's why you bring that up. But with that all being said, I still, in my heart, believe that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. would put Kamala Harris over the top as far as getting the votes to win. I really feel that way. People can call me crazy. Yeah.
Oh, too.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was just my short.
I don't know either, and I appreciate the call, and you're right, I'm on your side. I don't know either. Here's what I do know. Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy. Donald Trump is a liable sexual abusing rapist. Donald Trump is a horrific human being who is a 34-count convicted felon. Let me repeat that once again for the party that is the law and order party. Donald Trump is a 34-count convicted felon. And I got really pissed off at one of my friends, actually. He's a nice guy, but he's a right-wing conservative pundit, and he's popular. His name's Carmine Sabia. He's done this show before. And he goes on social media. I know you know Chuck Schumer, and you know all them. And he got really angry at them for pandering, right? He got angry at them for pandering and, now supporting Kamala Harris. Where were you 3 months ago? And I said, wait a second. You have the party and the vice president who once compared your guy to Adolf Hitler. You have Marco Rubio, who once said that Donald Trump was incompetent to serve. Nikki Haley said that Donald Trump was incompetent to serve. And now they've all wearing the Donald Trump knee pads and brown-nosing Donald Trump. They have zero credibility. So what? So Chuck Schumer now is publicly supporting Kamala Harris. You've got the vice presidential nominee who's said that Donald Trump compared him to Hitler. Stop complaining about Chuck Schumer. Am I wrong?
Yeah, it's hard for these people to walk back what they've said in the past, but they do.
It's embarrassing, man. It's embarrassing. All right, let's get back to the calls, Jay. 702-221-7283. They've been a lot more gentler with you than I thought. I'll be honest. Maybe that'll change. I don't know. I was hoping they'd really give it to you. I don't know. They're being way too kind to you, Jay.
I'm trying to take a reasonable position in everything I do.
I know that.
And,
I know that. I know that.
I'm a moderate, and
I know.
I stop backing party. I look at the person instead.
I understand.
So, Democrat, Republican, what do they stand for?
If you look at the person, you're certainly not voting for Donald Trump. I know that. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Tracy. Tracy's next on PTL. Hi, Tracy. Where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm calling from Virginia.
Virginia. Thanks for calling in, Tracy. You're on with Jay. What's on your mind?
So, Jay, quick question. Now, my background is medical and psych, which has a lot to do with education, but also common sense. So how can you be okay with the rhetoric of vaccines are cures when vaccines are not cures? That's number one. So let's get that out the way. Number two, the COVID vaccine was also not a cure for COVID. So how do you think it's going to be if, speaking hypothetically, he's elected? How do you think that's really going to affect the medical and psych fields and not affect it in a negative way? Because we got to use a little bit of common sense here.
Well, and again, he's not, from my experience, my conversations with him, he's not anti-vaccine. He's anti-vaccine mandate, right? He doesn't think people should be forced to take a vaccine that wasn't tested, that wasn't thoroughly and completely tested. So I think what you're going to see is you're going to see thoroughly, completely tested vaccines that are safe, that people aren't going to be able to challenge not only their efficacy, but also their safety, right? He questioned the safety of the COVID vaccine. He never said don't take it, right? He's not telling you not to take it. He's just saying, for me, for him, he doesn't want to take it, and he shouldn't be precluded from traveling or eating in a restaurant or shopping in a store because
some of his kids did take it, though. And then when I challenged him on that, he said, well, they had to take it to go to school. And then I said to him, well, why didn't you send them to private school? And he wouldn't answer that question.
Okay, so Brian, I'm so glad you brought that up because that is actually my next point.
Mm-hmm.
For decades, vaccines have been a requirement for public school.
Right, correct.
This has not changed. So you all of a sudden have someone who's claiming they want more studies done. However, how many other medical treatments, I'm actually going through one currently, were rushed because they wanted to get them out and people still did it.
Right.
So my question again goes back to, and please do not go back to anything he said. I'm asking you, how would him being elected affect the medical and psych field?
So he is extremely health conscious, from everything from what's in our food and what we consume to what's in the vaccines and the medicines that we take. I think he would only help. He's not anti-vaccine. He wants to make sure what we put in our bodies is safe.
So I've heard him talk about food intake and that sort of stuff. I don't have a problem with any of that stuff when he talks about doctors that he feels, and I agree with him, that overprescribe certain drugs, whether it be antidepressants. I agree with a lot of that stuff. Again, my issue with him, for the most part, is when he talks about vaccines in general. If you want to talk about it for a couple minutes in a speech, I know he's passionate about it, fine. But when it's 75% of a campaign speech, I have a problem with that. Move on to what I would consider more important things, like how Trump. That's to me, this is my biggest criticism of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He doesn't call out Donald Trump for anything, and he once said, and this pisses me off. He says that he believes you can make the argument, and he said it on this show, that Joe Biden could be more of a threat to democracy than Donald Trump. Jay, that is an absurd statement to make. He said it on this show. He said it in other interviews. That's ridiculous. And I know he has a problem with censorship. We talked about that on this show. Twitter, X, YouTube, whatever you want to call it, these are private businesses. And, for him to say that Joe, even if you agree with him on that issue, to say that Joe Biden is more of a threat to our democracy than Donald Trump after we had January 6th, to me is absolutely ridiculous. I didn't like it when he said it then. He probably still feels the same way now. He never calls out Trump for anything. In fact, he thanked him for reaching out to him the other day. He's never called out Trump for hardly anything.
Okay, so you're all over the map, right?
It's my frustration. It's a big frustration.
So let's take them one at a time, right? And I'll try and remember your 5 or 6
and then we'll get back
points.
to the calls. Yep.
Let's just go back to the calls. It's not.
You really want to go back to the calls?
Yeah.
All right.
You're all over the map.
All right. We'll take a break in a little bit after we take some more calls. But he never airily criticizes Donald Trump, and
you're mischaracterizing what he was saying.
Have you ever heard him say Donald Trump is a threat to democracy? Have you ever heard him say that Donald Trump incited January 6th? Have you ever heard him say that every single time Donald Trump says the election was stolen, it's a threat to our democracy? Have you ever heard him talk about how Donald Trump is a felon, a convicted felon, and a liable sexual abuser? I never hear him talk about that stuff.
I've heard him critical of both Trump and Biden.
Oh boy, I've never heard him talk like that.
I
want to hear somebody with some conviction and honesty.
Understand, Democrats believe that Trump is a threat to democracy. He's an existential threat. Republicans believe that Biden and Harris are an existential threat, that they're going to usher in World War III.
Well, that's absurd. That's
well,
a
but
ridiculous
they
take.
say the same thing about your position on Trump.
Okay, well, they didn't incite an insurrection. Donald Trump still says he won the 2020 election. So you could think that in the future, boy, they're going to cause a civil war. But guess what? In the past, Donald Trump caused what we were known as January 6th. So that's just a fact. I want someone with some conviction. And if you don't think Donald Trump is a felon, I don't care what your personal opinions are. He was convicted in a court of law. And I'm not saying, I know we agree on this, Jay. I'm not saying you feel that way. I'm just giving you my criticisms of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He doesn't call out Donald Trump. And if he does, it's nowhere near to the amount that he should be. And I have a problem with that.
Yeah. So on the censorship issue that you raised, his issue is, yes, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, they are private platforms. His problem is when the government puts pressure on a private platform not to share content.
If the government is calling out what I would consider, whether it be medical misinformation or incitement of violence, I don't have a problem with the government saying, hey, you guys should take a look at this because we've had this issue, we've had that issue, we don't want people harmed, we don't want people. I don't have a problem with that. But he makes it sound like Joe Biden picked up the phone one day and said, hey, this is my political rival. I want you to censor him. That's not what happened here. That's not what happened. And he's mischaracterizing the situation. That I don't like either.
I don't think he's saying Joe Biden picked up the phone, but he's holding Joe Biden accountable as the president and the head of the party, right? For the party's action and his administration's
But
action.
to say that he's more of a threat because of that than Donald Trump, Jay, that's insane. You don't believe that. I know you don't believe that.
That's insane from the Democrats' core point of view. Right?
No,
That
it's
Donald
insane
Trump's
from, I think, from a logical point of view. Donald Trump didn't want to leave the White House. People died.
From a logical point of view, do you think the Republicans view Donald Trump as an existential threat?
I think some do, but they're afraid to say it publicly, but some do. Some have said it publicly. Some Republicans have, like the Duncans of the world and others, the Mitt Romneys of the world, the Liz Cheneys of the world. And I think there are a lot of Republicans out there, Jay, that are cowards. And you know exactly who I'm talking about. They're cowards, and they're afraid to say it publicly. Yes, I think a good portion of the Republican Party knows that Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy, but they're too damn scared to say it publicly.
So I'm not talking about the office holders and the elected officials. I'm talking about the voting.
In general?
The people who are voting. Do you think they view Donald Trump as an existential threat?
I think the people out there in general that are not elected officials that don't believe Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy are very stupid people. Yes, they're very dumb. The people in this country that don't think Trump is a threat,
and I'm not taking a position.
They're
on
dumb
this.
people. They're
I'm not taking a
stupid.
position on this.
Yeah.
But understand the way you feel about them is the exact same way they feel about you.
Well, that's fine. I mean, they feel
Because
transgenders are more of a threat to our kids than guns. Should I respect their opinion? I don't. They're all a bunch of idiots. These are stupid people. These are dumb people that think more guns make us safer. These are dumb people that think, hey, let's take away a woman's right to choose. More guns make us safer. Drag queen reading and let's ban books. I don't respect any of these idiots. They're MAGA deplorables. They're dumb, uneducated, usually white people in middle America. I don't respect their opinion at all.
This is the problem with politics today. Nobody talks anymore.
I talk to people that I disagree with every day, but I have a serious problem with anybody who thinks that Joe Biden and his administration are more of a threat than Donald Trump. We can disagree with the censorship stuff, and that's a fair conversation to have. But to look at what took place on January 6th and to say Joe Biden is more of a threat to our democracy than Donald Trump, who still lies about the election, who has divided this country more than any president in my lifetime, it's hard for me to respect that opinion. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. does not go after Trump anywhere near as much, in my opinion, as he should. Why? I don't know why. Why? Is he pandering to some of those voters? I don't know. You had to have these conversations with him privately.
Let's take some more calls.
You had to have these conversations. I know you had conversations with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. about this privately. All right, let's take some more calls. Well, I'll take your advice here, Jay. I'll take the billionaire's advice. I should more often. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Douglas. Douglas is next up on PTL. Hi, Douglas. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Coon Rapids, Minnesota.
Minnesota. All right. Thanks for calling in, Doug. What's on your mind?
Yes, I want to know what you make of the economic inflation we're in now.
I'll let Jay answer that one. Go ahead, Jay.
So I think we had a big inflation problem early on. I think it's under control now, and I think we're at, 3% inflation?
It's pretty low, 4%, around there. Yep.
Right, so that doesn't undo the inflation that we had over the last couple of years, but it's under control now. Now, what do you do about it is the question, because you have unaffordable pricing on housing and groceries and gas. So there's got to be a push in the economy to meet these new price levels. But we're not going to have deflation anytime soon. The prices are not going back down, but they're not rising at the rate that they were rising earlier.
You wouldn't blame Joe Biden for inflation and gas prices. Would you blame him for any of that? Because a lot of Republicans do. MAGA Republicans.
No, I question how much control over
Right.
things like inflation. It's
I
really
agree.
more the Fed.
I agree. I didn't blame George W. Bush for the high gas prices either, and I wasn't a fan of George W. Bush. I agree. Doug, anything else for us?
Yes, and now a friend. So two other things. A friend of mine told me that we were better off when we had Trump as president because we had no inflation.
Well, we also had. I'll let you respond to that, Jay, but I just want to jump onto that real quickly and say we didn't have a war in the Ukraine. We didn't have what was going on now, at least right now, when it comes to Israel and the Palestinian conflict. It's escalated. We were also coming out of a pandemic when we were losing 3,000 to 4,000 people a day, and we were all locked in our apartments, or in Jay's case, castles. So
Well, you didn't have, you had a lot of money being pumped into the money supply from deficit spending.
Yep.
Right. So now we have this national debt that's ridiculous, that we're going to have to deal with the consequences of. But that helped keep inflation down under Trump. Right?
Yeah.
A lot of spending on the credit card.
Layman's terms, tell me if you agree. Barack Obama left Donald Trump with a pretty darn good economy. Donald Trump did an okay job not ruining it, keeping it going steady until COVID hit. Joe Biden took over a terrible economy, and for the most part, in general terms, he's done a pretty good job with recovery. Do you disagree with any of that?
No, I think that's all fair.
It's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a fair perspective. Why can't anybody else agree with that? Why is that so hard?
Because everybody's coming from a position of my guy versus their guy. It's us versus them. What was it? Lincoln said, "A house divided cannot stand," and our biggest threat is not from overseas but from within.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We're tearing ourselves apart as a country because of this kind of rhetoric.
We weren't doing this 7 or 8 years ago.
No, we weren't.
Donald Trump.
That's a big piece of it.
They can say I have Trump derangement syndrome until the cows come home. Donald Trump has divided this country. Very divisive.
But you know what? The election of Barack Obama was divisive.
There were a lot of, well, listen, the birther issue and all that other stuff. I wouldn't blame Democrats for that, but I will also say that one of my criticisms of Barack Obama, I'm not sure he did a lot to help us when it came to race relations. I think he could have done a better job. But also, I would say I miss him a great deal. I miss him in office a great deal.
Yeah.
All right, let's take some more phone calls. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Rhonda. Rhonda's next up on PTL. Hi, Rhonda. Where are you calling from?
Oh, hello. I had to take it off the speaker. Hello?
Yep,
Can you hear me
yep.
okay?
Loud and
Rhonda.
clear, Rhonda. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Indiana.
Indiana. Okay. Indiana, my favorite basketball player of all time from French Lick. I think you know. I think you know who that is. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rhonda. What's on your mind today?
Okay, and I've been listening to what you're saying. I'm a very progressive Democrat, and I believe what you said to Mr. Bloom about his person that he's backing is correct, because he's not going to bring anything to the Democratic Party if he were to be RFK was to be brought over. It's not going to bring anything.
He'll bring votes.
And like you said, he has not said anything to bring the issue with Trump to the forefront.
Right. So we agree there, but here's where we might disagree. He'll bring votes. If he ran,
I don't think so.
You don't think he would bring votes to Kamala's side at all? Like maybe independents
maybe
or
some,
Republicans?
Maybe some, but I don't think to that degree.
All right, so give me your VP pick that you think will move the needle. Who do you think she should pick?
I think it's the Pennsylvania governor.
Shapiro? Okay, well, I don't disagree with you on that. He's got a great last name too, Jay, by the way. But
I didn't realize that for a while, but you do have the last name.
In spite of the last name, he would be a good pick.
So I think Josh Shapiro is actually my number one.
Mine.
I think the guy out of Arizona, and why am I forgetting his name right now?
Kelly?
Yeah, Kelly, I think would be
Kelly.
I think Kelly would be a good. I think Beto O'Rourke would be a good pick too. And I think Bashir would be a good pick. So those are kind of my four, right?
Yeah.
All due respect.
I agree with all those. I agree with all
due
those.
respect to Gretchen Whitmer, and all due respect to women.
Yeah.
I don't think putting 2 women on the ticket would be a good idea.
No, I think that's pushing it.
Yeah,
I think that's pushing it.
And again, I don't mean to play the race card either, but we have to be honest with one another. I'm not sure putting 2 black people on the ticket would be a good thing either. And I'm not saying they're not capable. I'm not saying it from that aspect. I'm just saying it from the pragmatic aspect of why you shouldn't have 2 women on the ticket either. We want to defeat.
Right, you want to balance ticket.
Exactly. Balance. We want to defeat Donald Trump. What's the best way to do
Absolutely.
that? Kamala Harris? Okay, fine. I'm in. Let's get a white male in there, okay, to be her VP.
Yeah, but
you're from
but I
Indiana.
would.
You're from
if
Indiana.
If Kennedy was on the ticket, I mean, I would still not vote for Trump. That would be out of the question.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't vote if it came just to Trump. But I'm so happy that things are going better now, and I think that's all it took. I'm a Joe Biden fan from way back.
Well, he's a good man for doing what he did, regardless of whether people want to say he was pushed out or not. He made the right decision. He's a good man. He's a hero. He was
unselfish.
Yes, he did something, and I put this on social media. Joe Biden did something that Donald Trump is incapable of doing, and that is putting the country before yourself. That's exactly whether Joe Biden was forced to do it or not, he made the right decision. Right,
Well,
Jay?
And that's where we started, right?
Thank you for the call, by the way, dear. Appreciate you.
That's where we started. Is George Washington stepped down, didn't have to.
Right,
And
correct.
Joe Biden stepped down, and
Correct,
didn't have to.
correct.
Joe's done some amazing stuff. He's done some really good things.
You would agree. Yeah, he's been a good, would you say he's been a good president?
Yes, he has been a good
He's
president.
accomplished a lot, right?
Yeah, but he's not the same person he was 4 years ago.
So
his time was 16 and 20, not 20 and 24.
Jay, I'm glad you brought that up because I have somebody coming on the show tomorrow who made national news on TMZ over the weekend, and I'm talking about Seth Moulton. He's going to tell the story on the air tomorrow. He spent a lot of time around Joe Biden over the years, right?
Yeah.
And Seth Moulton ran against Nancy Pelosi. He ran for president. Well-known guy. He told me a couple months ago, and he's going to tell the story on the air, he met with Joe Biden, and Joe didn't even know who he was.
Yeah.
So I think something happened with Joe Biden's health very lately. I'm talking like maybe within the last 3 or 4 months. Something has happened.
A couple of months ago, he had a rally here in Vegas.
Yeah.
And he was talking about his policy, and he was talking about how his policy is going to make America great again.
Oh, jeez. That's a no-no.
You know?
Can't do that. You know?
A year ago, he wouldn't have done that.
I think the last 6 months, his mental health, maybe, he's getting older. And
that was my concern. How's he going to go another 4.5 years?
Well, we don't have to worry about that now.
Yeah.
So that's
he did the right thing.
He did the right thing, and I will always have the utmost respect for Joe Biden, his wife Jill, and I respect his decision. And he was a good president, and I would say that to his face. Thank you for what you did.
I'm surprised our last caller from Indiana didn't bring up Mayor Pete.
You know, a lot of people are saying Mayor Pete.
Pete's great.
I know you're a big Mayor Pete fan. He's a very intelligent man.
He's a very smart guy.
Okay, let me ask you a question. And again, I have to bring this up. And it doesn't matter to me. Is the country ready for a gay president and or vice president?
I don't think so.
Isn't that sad? It's sad, but you're probably right.
I don't think so. And it's a shame because Pete speaks 7 languages,
Sure.
war veteran.
Yeah.
He's
a hero.
Very, very thought out, very thoughtful, very
I
articulate.
love Mayor Pete. He's great.
He's fantastic.
Yeah, I agree.
But I don't think the country's ready.
Sadly, I agree with you on that one as well. 702-221-7283. Is the country ready for a black president?
Is the country ready for a Jewish vice president?
I don't know. I hope so. I don't know the answer to that. I really don't. I hope
Mr.
so.
Shapiro.
I don't know. Do you? I don't know. I really don't know the answer to
I think
that.
there are pockets where it's going to be a problem for Kamala with Shapiro as vice
I
president.
hope not. You could be right. I hope you're wrong. I don't know. All right, let's get back to the calls. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Courtney. Courtney is next up on PTL.
Hey.
Hi, Courtney. Where are you calling from?
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
I'm calling from Brooklyn, New York.
All right, Brooklyn, New York. I love it. What's on your mind today, Courtney?
I really, I was initially really sad about Biden leaving. I felt like he was pushed out, but seeing how Kamala has energized the whole race has been really great. RFK Jr. is a wacko with a brain worm, so no. There's no way you could run him. He is also a Trump spoiler. We know that he is regularly talking to Trump. He's only in the race to spoil the Democratic Party. Pete can't run. Unfortunately, I think he would be great, but I don't think the country's ready for a black woman and a gay man. I also am not sure if they're ready for a black woman and a Jewish man. I mean, unfortunately, because I'm still on the fence of whether we're going to be able to get her in as a black woman.
So basically, what
she's
you're
definitely
basically
the right man.
basically what you're saying is RuPaul has no chance as a future possible president. Is that what you're saying?
There's your ticket. RuPaul and Bruce Jenner.
Oh, there you
Caitlyn
go.
Jenner.
They got my
I think
vote.
Joe Kennedy. My vote is Joe Kennedy III.
Oh, there you go.
I think he would be a great vice president.
That's an interesting one. So
Kelly's too old.
Well,
Yeah.
all right. So I want to touch on something you said. I mean, you said he's a complete wacko. I spent time with him. He's really not a wacko. And when you say things like the brainworm, right? What you're talking about is a parasite that he picked up when he was doing some environmental work overseas internationally. 1.5 billion people get those. It's not some...
He's in Trump's pocket and on the phone with Trump regularly. I don't trust him as far as I can throw him.
He would be on the phone with Kamala too if she called him.
why does he never again? But I'm going to take her side on this one, Jay.
That's
2 against.
fine.
Okay, he takes that phone call. There is no pushback. Let me tell you something. If Trump called me right now and I was running for president, which I would take the call, and I'd call him a scumbag. Hey, you're a scumbag. You know, why don't you stop abusing women? No, I would never work in your administration because I don't work with rapists. No, I'm not going to bow out of the race, whether you like it or not. Okay. Why don't you be a better person? Why don't you be a better father? Why don't you be a better husband and stop worrying so much about your fake trophies on the golf course? Now, I don't expect Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to talk like that, but I did expect him to say, no, sir, Mr. Trump, I'm in this to win it, and I will not work in your administration, but I wish you the best of luck. He could have said that, Jay.
Well, and again, we don't have the whole conversation.
Exactly.
We have a couple of minutes of an outtake from a
You
much
know
longer
he didn't say
conversation.
that. He thanked Donald Trump for the phone
I
call.
can tell you that there's no deal.
Well, yeah, there's no deal, but why couldn't he, in that phone call, say that? Why didn't he say that publicly? Why does it have to be, well, there's no deal? Why not in a statement say, thank you, Trump, for calling in, but there is no deal? Why wouldn't he? Why can't he talk like that? There's a reason, Jay, why he's not doing that. And you know why? You know why he's not doing that? Because he wants Donald Trump voters. That's why. That's why.
Well, and doesn't that
Yep.
doesn't that
He's
help
in
Kamala?
bed with Donald Trump.
Well, Melania, he probably has a better chance of being in bed with Donald Trump than Melania Trump does. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. That's for sure. Did you guys see that kiss? Jay, what'd you think? Well, let me ask you. You're a New Yorker. You're honest. What did you make of that attempted kiss by Donald Trump and Melania Trump at the end of that RNC speech? How awkward was that?
It was awkward. She's his paid escort. I mean, she hasn't been with him in years.
A paid escort. Wow.
By
I
the
like
way,
that.
props to shout out to Brooklyn. My family's from Ocean Parkway and Ditmas Avenue.
There you go. There you go.
Oh, cool.
Well, thank
I'm
you.
in Bushwick.
Thank you
Nice.
for the call, Courtney. I appreciate you. That was the
Thank
most
you.
awkward hug / I said Melania Trump was inches away from her life. She almost had to lock lips with Donald Trump, but she moved her head at the last second and it saved her. Praise the Lord. Jesus Christ. Praise God. Melania was saved by Donald Trump's lips because we don't know where those lips have been. Well, we sort of do, but you know, I don't know. Like when you and your wife, you've been married for a long time.
30 years.
You have a lovely wife, beautiful wife. You're a good father, good husband. Like, what do you and your wife say when you see Melania and Trump? Like, your wife had to have an opinion on that. Like what? How awkward was that? That was awful, right? It's awful.
They have a role to play, and they're playing their roles. But I don't think-
Contractual, you think?
could be.
I think it's contractual. That's what I think.
I don't think Melania signed up to be first lady and all this publicity and all this attention when they first got married.
But she did sign up to marry Orange Turd. She did do that.
She did.
And they conceived a child, and I think that's the last time they were intimate. That's my personal opinion. By the way, Trump even admitted that with Susan McDougal, is that her name? Even years back, he said they weren't even sleeping in the same bed for years. So, I mean, that's just my... I think the last time they actually kissed passionately was before Barron was... Well, I don't even think they kissed
Was when
then.
the post office delivered it?
Yeah, exactly. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Al. Al is next up on PTL. What's going on, Al?
How you guys doing? There's two questions. There's one question I want to ask, but I got to make one statement first, and I might not get to the question because I know it's going to move you the wrong way there, Brian. But, you know, you always say that J.D. Vance called Trump Hitler.
He compared
and my
him to
response to that, what about when Kamala called Joe Biden a racist
because you're lying. Because you're lying.
She got thrown, and then she had to step
because
out.
you're lying.
She only got like
because
1%
you're lying.
of the
Hey Al.
electorate.
Hey Al.
What do you think of that?
Al, because you're lying. Never did Kamala Harris say, Joe Biden, you're a racist. You are either lying.
You never say that. What are you talking about?
No, she was criticizing his policies with racial connotations with the way that Joe Biden put in policy. Never once did Kamala Harris say, Joe, you're a racist. Al, here's the problem. And you're a nice guy, Al. I like
go
you.
Ahead. Yeah, I
like you.
I'll go look that up again.
Okay, please
you know,
do.
Just
Al,
I
here's
know
the
you,
problem.
but I'm pretty sure I heard her say that.
Okay, Al.
You're a racist. Go
Al,
ahead.
let me preface this. I think you're a very nice guy, and I always appreciate it when you call in and we disagree on stuff. Here's the problem.
Right.
When you listen to other of these conservative idiots that do shows in Vegas, and you know exactly who I'm talking about, they will go on the air. Hold on. They will go on the air because they're buffoons. Some of them don't even live here, and they pay to be on the air in other states, and they'll say things like, Kamala called Joe Biden a racist. Al, it never happened. She was criticizing Joe Biden on a debate stage for his record on policy. But sadly, right-wing a-holes will say those types of things. It gets me frustrated when a nice guy like yourself...
All right. Well, I'm going to go look. I actually made that statement because I thought I heard that, and maybe I hope I don't have Bidenism, but I'll go re-look at that video.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
See.
Okay, go ahead.
But here's the other question that I want to have real quick for your guest. He's a billionaire. He knows how the economy works.
Self-made.
You asked him, who do you blame for the inflation? And then I think he said the feds. You know, I blame the fact that, that we're not energy independent. I mean, I really do believe that. I want to ask him if he could elaborate who he blames for the inflation increase that we had over the last few years.
Good question, Al. Thank you for the phone call, by the way. Stop listening to those right-wing turds. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jay.
There's a lot of... it's a very complex answer.
Yeah.
There's no one person to blame or one agency to blame. So it's the feds combined with institutional investors buying up real estate. They want to, you have BlackRock and Blackstone, Fortress, Carlyle. They want to buy up 40% of the single family homes in the country.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, that's going to drive prices up because you have increased demand.
Mm-hmm.
You have increased fuel prices, which increase the grocery store prices. Right. So, what's driving the fuel price? Because the higher fuel prices drive inflation also. So there's no one simple answer. There's no magic bullet. It's a combination of a lot of factors.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. drops out of the race today. Who do you vote for?
If he drops out to be Kamala's vice president, I would vote for Kamala.
All right. Well, there's some logic there. I appreciate that. Okay. Let's take another call. Well, I knew you would say that, but I just want people out there to know that you're not a whack job, okay? You would vote on the right side of history.
I support moderates, Democrat or Republican.
Yes, I understand that. And while we might disagree a little bit on Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I know the last person you would vote for is Donald Trump. Okay, hold on a second. Let me ask you one more question. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is running as Donald Trump's vice presidential candidate. Who do you vote for? I had to ask you that one.
I'm going to be sick that day.
That's all right. I'll let you slide on that one. That's a tough one. All right, let's take some more calls. Let's go to Amelia. Hi, Amelia. Thank you for calling in. Where are you calling from?
I'm from Georgia. I called you about a month ago, and I did find those books for you.
It took you a month to call me back. Wow, women that's my life.
I brought it up about the Plan B deal,
Understood.
and you said, "Oh no, Kamala Harris would not make a." You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And here we are. Okay. And here we are, a month later, okay? First of all, Melania Trump got in vitro fertilization. There's no way that she slept with that. I'm sorry.
Probably not. Probably not, yeah. Probably not.
And let me make this other comment, and about the pandemic. And I've been through something overseas or whatever and so forth, and the United States had never experienced a pandemic. Where I think we failed is, we had incentive checks that came out to individuals at the beginning of it. Well, there should have been some help as we were coming out of this too, because a lot of products were lost, a lot of food was lost, a lot was lost. Okay, and we're trying to make up for a lot of things and so forth. But honestly, I would love to see. Now, did you watch Bill Maher Friday night?
I did, and I did.
And Pete was on there.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Well, after I talked to you a month ago, I said, this happens or something happens. I said, why not just cover all the bases and that's it? He'd be my pick. Would be Pete.
I wouldn't have a problem with that. My
Listen,
issue is.
we are so.
But Amelia, hang on. My issue is not whether, and I think Jay agrees with me, whether Pete would be a great vice president, because I think he would. In fact, I think he'd be a great president. My issue is, are people going to vote or not vote for the ticket because he's gay? And I hate to bring that up because I'm not like that. You're not like that. Jay's not like that. But I'm concerned that there are some Americans that are, then it could cost them the election. That's my concern.
Well, we are so far behind already as far as, our ancestors and, even some of those folks and what has been going on, over, across the pond. I mean, look who ran Germany for so many years.
Yeah.
Okay. And listen, they've had gays in the military over there in their for years.
You don't have to convince me. I get it. You don't have to convince me. I'm just, you don't have to convince me. I'm just worried.
Here's the thing. I don't worry that much because I think if she did it, it would just blow it up. There's no way. There's no way that the Republicans could win if Pete was on the ticket with her.
He would destroy J.D. Vance in a debate. I mean, that's pretty clear. He's got about 30 times the intelligence that J.D. Vance is I'm sorry, but I'm not going to sit here and say J.D. Vance is a smart. He's a dummy, and he's so awkward. Did you hear him yesterday talk about diet? What was the soda he was drinking? I forgot the soda that he was bragging about drinking, and it was just so awkward. Like, he's not funny. He's got no charisma. I don't think he's extremely intelligent. But yet, hey, he's got no problem working for a boss that he compares to Adolf Hitler. So I think that says all you need to know about J.D. Vance. Thank you for the call, Amelia, and you better call back within a month or I'm going to be very upset. All right, let's take some more phone calls, Jay. 702-221-7283. Let's go to JT. JT is next up on PTL. Hi, JT. Where are you calling from?
Hey, I'm calling from right here in Las Vegas.
All right, I love my locals. What's up, JT?
Got a question for Jay.
Sure.
Because I think he has more knowledge about this than you might, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Jay, what do you think about the two cases, one brought by Letitia James against Trump and the other one brought by Bragg against Trump? My question is, who is the victim in either one of those cases? Do you believe either one will stand up upon appeal? And what the hell felony was Donald Trump actually convicted of?
Okay. So these 30, we'll start with the last part of your question first. These 34 convictions. My understanding of the charges that he was found guilty of is that he falsified business records in the furtherance of election interference, right? But I have an issue with that.
But weren't those 34 indictments all misdemeanors?
No, it elevates to a felony if you use it to interfere with an election, right? But
Okay.
That's not the issue. The issue is those were private records that weren't meant to be used publicly to influence an election. So altering the election is different than buying somebody's story. I think that was probably the weakest case against him, and I didn't think he was going to be convicted. I didn't think he should be convicted on that.
Does this thing even come close to standing up upon appeal?
Depends on who the judge is, right? Because it's going to go to a judge, and I've seen the judiciary, have different outcomes with the same fact set depending on which judge you get.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely partisanship in the judge.
Who was the victim in the Bragg case?
But I don't understand that question because there doesn't necessarily have to be a victim in order for a felony to have been committed or a crime to have been committed. You do get what I'm saying there, right? I understand your question.
That, but how does a state attorney or a New York City attorney bring federal charges?
How? Well, if they feel like they have enough evidence that they could get a conviction in a courtroom, which they did. So, I mean, I don't know what to tell you there. I mean, listen, we could go into a rabbit hole and disagree, or you don't think the charges had merit, and you're entitled to your opinion. But here's the bottom line. Donald Trump is a 34-count convicted felon. Whether we can agree or disagree with that, he is. And number two, he'll have the chance to appeal it. Number three, he's also a liable sexual abuser. I mean, a jury of his peers found that. So, I mean, we can...
Hey, Brian, that wasn't my question. It was to Jay.
Okay, well, guess what? It's my show, and I'll answer it whether you like it or not, tough guy, okay? What, I can't answer... I can't answer a question on my own show, jackass? Get off my show. Have a nice day. Get your own show, jerk. Hey, I asked Jay the question. Jeez, guarantee you that guy, Jay, that guy will be going at the next Klan Trump rally. Okay, 100%. He's ordered his white uniform in the mail, and 100% he's got his Confederate flag on the front and the back of his pickup truck, and he'll be voting for Donald Trump. I guarantee you 100%.
I'll take that bet.
Okay.
I'll take that back. I've met a lot of Trump supporters, and outside of the politics that we disagree on, there's some actually pretty nice people.
Oh, sure. He just wasn't one of them. That's all. Oh, I agree. I have plenty of friends of mine that happen to be Trump supporters. That guy just wasn't one of them. Let's go to Vivian next. Hi, Vivian. Thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
Hi, Brian. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. What's up?
All right. First of all, I really can't go with Kennedy. I just can't. I think he's too much towards Trump in reference to some of the stuff that he say. So I wouldn't want him. And then my second thing has to do with the talk you were talking about COVID. I don't understand why America thinks that they're the only person who had COVID and that it wasn't a worldwide thing. Everything they always have is centralized about what happened here when it was happening all over the world.
Yeah. Well, I'll let Jay respond to that. Go ahead, Jay.
Well, all right. So in the middle of the pandemic, I had to go have a meeting in Belgrade in Serbia. And I went over there, no masks, no vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's walking the street, business as usual, and everybody was fine.
That's part of the herd thing that they was trying to make people do?
I think they just didn't really take it as seriously as we did. And their population didn't get wiped out. Their numbers aren't worse than ours. In fact, I think their numbers were probably better than ours.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more that we don't know. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, right? But
Jay is not. To his credit, I will say this: he is not a. I think a lot of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. fans might be, but he is not.
But I'm not a conspiracy theorist. But I'm, there's no question. There's a lot of money in this vaccine, and a lot of money involved in trillions of dollars involved in this pandemic.
I don't doubt that. I mean, I think
And
they have
that-
cures.
that-
They probably
that-
have cures for cancer and
I think-
diabetes and
I
all
think,
that.
I think it'd be
Yeah.
naive to assume that money didn't influence people's decisions.
No doubt. Thank you for the call, Vivian. I appreciate it. Wow, a lot of calls that we swept through here, and we only have a few minutes left. So, first of all, do we have time for one more call? I don't think we do. No, I don't think we have time for one more call. I want to be able to thank Jay for being here. That's important. I have to thank him. Thank you, Jay. And I checked out some of Jay's car collection, which is unbelievable a few weeks ago. Am I allowed to say publicly a certain woman who visited you? Can I say that on the air, or am I not allowed to say that? I won't say it.
I
if
don't
you
want to
want
get
me
into
to.
that.
Okay. A very beautiful lady, a very famous lady, went to see Jay and checked out his car collection, but I won't say who it was. At least I won't say it publicly. But you've done a lot of good things for a lot of people here, and I enjoy always mixing it up with you a little bit. We agree on a lot. Like it might not sound that way on this show, but we agree on a lot of stuff. Some things about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. maybe we disagree on. But before I let you go, and before we have the end of the show here, who do you think is going to be our elected president in November? Who's going to win? I guess that's what I'm saying.
As everything stands right now, absent more dramatic changes, I think probably Donald Trump.
Oh, boy. I'm worried. I'll be honest with you. I'm worried. I hope you're wrong. I think you hope you're wrong, too. I'm feeling a little bit better than I did a few days ago. But I think the next couple weeks are really important.
The Democratic Party came together, and they needed to do that to at least mount a serious challenge.
We'll see, right?
But
we'll
find
see.
out.
We'll see. We'll find out, Jay. And I know you'll be hopefully coming back on the show before November and chat with us. I want to remind all of you, this is an independently owned show. What does that mean? We rely on the good people like yourselves, whether you agree or disagree with me. Even if you call into the show and don't think I have the right to answer a question, some people do call in and don't think I have the right to do that. That's okay. Check out my website, pushingthelimits.live. Again, we are independently owned. Pushingthelimits.live means we rely on people like you. If you like what we do, then support us by going on the website, signing up for the free newsletter. You can buy merchandise on there. It's very affordable. And if you don't want to buy merchandise, you could donate, and you will hear from me personally if you do that. So please check out my website, pushingthelimits.live. I'm expecting a very huge donation from some of my billionaire friends. I would never talk about you like that, Jay. No, I'm just kidding. No, but Jay, all seriousness, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. We appreciate all the calls from all over the country. Tomorrow on the show, Massachusetts Congressman, former presidential candidate, Seth Moulton will be joining us. He was one of the first Democrats to come forward and say that Joe Biden should step aside. And also the Mooch, Anthony Scaramucci, will be joining us on the show tomorrow. See you tomorrow, everybody. Have a great day.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a